I've created companies that are now generating about $13 billion in revenue and collectively have created 200,000 or 300,000 high-paying jobs. And I will tell you that the stories of the CEOs or the leaders that are jerks or tyrants or whatever, those are really overrated. The majority of the CEOs and entrepreneurs I work with are normal people. They found a problem that they wanted to solve, a problem that was big and required a lot of energy. The majority of these people are phenomenal people. And that's what you need to be. You need to be a likable person, and that likability will help create influence for you. Remember, we talked about the two most important words in these courses, access and influence. So by the end of this lesson, you will know how to be the type of person who other people gravitate toward, professionally plus personally. Do you sometimes struggle to make friends or argue with others and still don't manage to win them over to your way of thinking? I've learned that arguing is the quickest way to kill a relationship. Do you feel like your relationships with your colleagues or your clients could be better? In this lesson, we're going to guide you how to overcome some of these obstacles. Charisma can be learned and it can be practiced and perfected, and I'll show you how to do it. We're going to cover 8 special techniques. They are: number 1, smile. I love the story about Joel and Victoria Osteen, the famous pastor. Joel is always smiling, and Victoria was asked one night about their honeymoon night, and they said, was there anything you were thinking about, your honeymoon night? You're getting married, you're going to sleep with this man that you love. And Victoria laughed and she said, I really wanted to know if he smiles in his sleep. That was the number 1 thing I wanted to know, and he does. Number 2, remember people's names. Number 3, be interested, not interesting. Number 4, when you're talking, keep things short and talk through stories. People love stories. Number 5, be friendly to encourage agreement. Number 6, avoid arguments. Learn a philosophy that the problem is the problem, the person is not the problem. You can avoid arguments by agreeing that there's this problem over here that you both have different solutions to. Avoid arguments. Number 7, never criticize other people in the presence of other people. People don't like hearing negative Nelly gossip. They don't like hearing criticism of other people. Number 8, admit your own mistakes openly and only call attention to the mistakes of others indirectly. You do no great by putting other people down. You do greatness by not putting yourself down, but realizing your own mistakes and offering them to other people so they don't make them. Number 9, make just a few jokes about yourself to show humility. I love telling executives they should be humble, they should be gentle, but they should be powerful. Because my hero, Jesus Christ, was humble, he was gentle, and he was very powerful. That's a life model for anyone in business. And number 10, build goodwill. I believe in radical generosity, radical humility, radical obedience, and radical forgiveness. Those 4 principles all around building goodwill will really work for you. We're going to walk through each of these simple, concrete strategies in a more business and in more detail so you can use them to become more likable, persuasive, effective, professional, and become the leader you are evolving to be at this job and your next job and your next job. And by the way, the great news is these lessons are going to be very useful to you in all aspects of your life, your personal life and your professional life. You'll be able to better navigate phone calls. You'll be able to build and network relationships. You'll be able to do interviews. You'll be able to buy and sell better. Personal conversations will improve, and you'll even see a noticeable shift in your own psyche. Get rid of the negative stuff. Go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated. Practice radical generosity, radical forgiveness, radical obedience, and radical forgiveness. Okay, let's get into it. First of all, smile. According to psychology, the cave person in us is programmed to love a smile. It communicates, I am not a threat. I'm not going to hurt you. It's the first step toward lowering walls and building relationships of any kind. If someone we've just met with smiles at us, we tend to automatically like them. The smile of a baby, for instance, immediately makes us feel warm and fuzzy inside. We get the same feeling when a dog is overjoyed to see us and won't stop wagging its tail. If you want to make yourself instantly likable to someone, show them that you're happy, let them see you smiling. This subconsciously will encourage them to smile back, which tells their brain that they're happy to see you. And as if this wasn't a big enough benefit on its own, psychologists have also uncovered a positive side effect of smiling. The connection between positive emotions and smiling is not a one-way street. Even if you're consciously making yourself smile, it can still generate positive emotions going back and forth between the two people, just like how positive emotions lead to smiling in the first place. In other words, even though a smile costs nothing, you can use it to lift your spirits plus those of others. So, if you'd like to smile more, just do it. It will come more and more natural over time. Number 2, be appreciative. Plus, remember people's names. One of the strongest drivers of human behavior is the desire to be appreciated by others. We all like being complimented, plus hearing that we're doing a good job. Some people even claim that all of civilization ultimately rests upon the human desire to be important. I love Jordan Peterson's writings on this area if you ever have time to check him out. Our craving for approval plus praise makes us climb the highest mountains, write novels, achieve athletic events, and found multi-billion-dollar companies. No one is immune to this longing for importance plus appreciation. But you don't need to give somebody a fancy title to show your appreciation. It's enough to just use their proper name. To win somebody's favor, be sure to remember their name, plus use it in conversation frequently. How? Deliberately listen when people introduce themselves. Be sure you catch the name on the first time they say it, when it comes up the first time, and ask for them to repeat it, especially if you need to have it spelled out. I do this all the time working in China, in India, in different parts of the world. The names are very difficult, but it shows that I care. I could easily give them a number or a date, but learn the person's name. It's better to take the time to get it right the first time than to realize you still have it wrong down the road. I've done that too. I have one fellow I've been calling the wrong name for 2 years, and he still loves me. Repeat the name back to the person multiple times to associate it with the person with whom you're talking. For example, that's great. So Ellen, what's your favorite part of working for XYZ company? Finally, when you're alone, write it down to enforce your memory. Put it in your notes in our platform. It's such a simple thing, but by doing this, you will show others your appreciation, plus get far more back in return. When you leave little sparks of appreciation like this in your way, you'll be very surprised to see how positively people react. Their hunger for recognition has been fed, and you'll soon be someone who others like, plus enjoy working with. Business is hard enough. If you have to work with people you don't like, it's a real pain. So we all gravitate to try and find a friendly relationship with people that we could take a vacation with. Best of all, you'll have a positive impact on the lives of those around you. And who doesn't want that? Number 3, be interested, not interesting. I'll say that again. Be interested, not interesting. It seems a bit counterintuitive. Here you are going for a job interview, you want to be interesting, but it doesn't work. Often when we want to meet people like us, we want to seem cooler, more interesting, more special, richer, skinnier, more popular. But put that out of your head. Being interested in the other party is much more effective than being interesting yourself to them. And in fact, by focusing too much on being interesting, you can often come across aloof or selfish or self-centered. So stop trying to be interesting. While conversing, most people are so preoccupied with what they themselves want to say next that they barely listen to what you're saying anyway. Truly listening means making a conscious effort to give the other person your full, undivided attention. And the benefits of this approach are substantial. I've seen it in my own life. People love to talk about themselves. So ask people questions and for their advice. There's an old saying in raising capital. If I ask for money, I'm going to get advice. If I ask for advice, I'm going to get money. It works every time. As long as you keep them talking about themselves, they will like you. Make it all about the other person, not you. This has happened to me on numerous occasions when I've sat with very, very famous people, and I sit and listen and I ask questions and I'm very positive toward them, and they want to meet with me again, or they take my phone call, or they say, wow, we haven't seen each other in 8 months, or I can say to them, what happened to that issue in your life? And it immediately brings a connection back. Often when you're genuinely interested in someone else, they will walk away from the conversation thinking, wow, what an interesting person. They're thinking about you because you were interested in them. To get into the right mindset, try thinking like Ralph Waldo Emerson, who said that every person he met was superior to him in certain ways. And so there was always something to learn from, to appreciate in other people. I do that every day in my life. I hop in Uber, and I know that Uber driver, while they might be going through a tough financial time or whatever, has something they do better than me, and they're more special in some area than me. I always offer that respect to every person, kings or queens or anybody. It's important to note, though, that you shouldn't shower people with too much phony flattery. The Bible's pretty clear about that, so you have to find a balance, or they will see right through it. They'll see you as a phony. Instead, focus on the genuine good points of the person in front of you. Ask questions about the other person's accomplishment and their lives so they can talk freely about the things they love. You may be surprised at the deep connections you will forge quickly. That's happened to me talking about a dog or a child or some challenge at business. All of a sudden there's a bonding that's very unique and can be picked up. You know how when you haven't seen a friend in years and it feels like you pick up right where you left off? That's what this can do for you. Number 4, be friendly to encourage agreement. Friendliness can make people change their minds much more effectively than bluster and fury. So no matter what you're trying to achieve, be sure that you do it in a very friendly way. Again, if there is a problem that pops up, it's not the person that's the problem. The problem is the problem. The person is the person. If you want to convince someone of something, set an agreeable tone from the beginning by gently getting the other party to say yes right away from the stop. That's different from negotiating. We'll do a course on negotiating where you want to get 5 no's in a row before you get the yes. That's a whole nother art from my friend Chris Voss. Fascinating book, Never Split the Difference. Check it out, Chris Voss. For example, back to the story here, begin by emphasizing all the points on which you both agree. Focus on what you agree upon. Ask questions that have answers that are inevitably a yes or, yeah, I think I agree with that. For example, you can end a question asking for an affirmation like, do you know what I mean, right? Or does that make sense to you? Think of it like building momentum in billiards. It will be hard for them to reverse the course after all those yeses. Likewise, you should avoid leading people into questions where the answer is a guaranteed no or argumentative. You could end up building negative momentum very quickly, and worse, you could get a no to your ask early, so they're much more likely to change course later. So, the next time you want to get someone to agree with you, build positive momentum. Number 5, avoid all arguments. Arguing with another person almost never makes sense. If you lose the argument and you feel terrible. If you win, the other person will resent you forever for hurting their pride. So even if you have proved yourself right in an argument and changed their mind, you still will have lost their support of you as your personal brand. Again, you're talking about you as a brand. 9 times out of 10, arguments will only make both parties more entrenched in their stances than they were before. So the only solution is to avoid such disputes from the start, wherever possible. The next time you encounter opposition to your ideas, try to accept the disagreements as a new perspective that will help you enhance your position. This happens to me over and over again. It's why politicians start out strong in a position and 20 years later change. We all change, we all learn, and we all evolve. So put that problem over there in the conversation and say, you know, I'm going to think about that. You've given me a new perspective. After all, if 2 people always agree on everything, then one of them is dispensable. What's more, try to distrust your knee-jerk reaction to criticism. Often the first response that bubbles up in you is instinctively to defend, to fight, to put up your chops. Instead, take a moment to take a deep breath. Control your emotions and stay calm. And understand what people say about you is not necessarily who you are. Listen to what your opponent has to say without resistance or protest. Be palms up to learn something new about yourself. Promise to carefully examine their thoughts. Try to find areas of agreement. Freely admit when you've made mistakes. We will talk more about that later. And lastly, be sure to thank them for their honest input. After all, it's better to have people around you who are passionate about the topic at hand than indifferent or apathetic. When different ideas are on the table, you'll find yourself nearing the best solution together with that person. Another great social technique is, after the initial disagreements have been voiced, propose to reconvene at a later time. After you both have had time to think about it, say, look, you've made me think about something I've never thought of before. Can we schedule another time to talk about that problem that we both agree is a problem? I love you and I want to find a solution with you on this problem. During this break, really ask yourself as honestly as you can if your opponent could be right, and consider what reaction is likely to produce the results you seek. I'm not saying change your morals or change your character or change your position. I'm asking you to be open that there are many, many approaches to one problem, and sometimes we haven't thought of the solutions. By keeping these points in mind, you can avoid unnecessary and unwinnable arguments. Point number 5, never criticize others. Psychologist B.F. Skinner had discovered a long time ago that in animals, rewards are more effective at changing behavior than punishments. The same is true of people. Criticizing people will almost never encourage them to change their behavior because humans are not motivated primarily by reason. Instead, our actions are driven by emotions, and stories drive emotions. Instead, when a person feels criticized, they will go into the defense mode. They'll look like Rocky. They're ready to fight. They'll stop listening to anything you're saying, whether it's good, valid, or otherwise. They feel they're under attack. They circle the wagons. They dig in their heels to fight back or to protect themselves. We have all been in that position. So, while voicing criticism may help you to blow off steam, in the long run, it just makes other people like you less and doesn't change or encourage any positive change. And by the way, if you're criticizing another person, I'm thinking to myself, gee, I wonder what they're saying about me. You want to be positive and complimentary in everything you're doing. It's a bad thing to criticize people, and it's bad to gossip. For this reason, many successful people actually made it an intentional habit to never openly criticize other people. For me, I've been in a position many times to be criticized. I've been attacked in the press. I've been attacked on social media for things I believe in, especially my biblical beliefs. But you know what? Take the high road. Understand the problem is the problem and not the person. One of the old pastors says it best: hate the sin, love the sinner. You will always win with a positive attitude that that person has something that can help you in your life. Criticizing someone is easy, but it takes true character and integrity to be understanding and to forgive others for their mistakes and their shortcomings. If you want others to like you, plus actually make a positive change in a relationship, put yourself in their shoes. Think about why they did what they did. Accept their shortcomings and make it a rule to never criticize them openly. Likewise, never tell others that they are wrong. If you flatly tell somebody that they're wrong, what you've done is put up a huge wall and you're saying to them, I'm smarter than you, you're an idiot. And I don't think that's your heartfelt reason, but sometimes we get so wrapped up in the issues and so adamant, we actually destroy the relationship. So to the other party, it can feel like a direct attack on their self-esteem, and they will understandably want to retaliate. And as they feel insulted and disrespected, they will. They'll get you back. If you want the other party to reevaluate their view, it's much more effective to be humble and open-minded. For example, you can say, I think of it differently, but I might be wrong. I've been wrong pretty often, probably wrong more than right. So let's have a look at the facts again together, or maybe we could revisit this after I have a chance to think about it. If you frame your opposition like this, the other party is much less likely to resist or resent you before you've even had a chance to share your own thoughts. With a little luck and a little bit of grace, this soft approach will quickly turn opponents into allies, making it possible for you to help shape their opinions over time. Instead, when drawing attention to mistakes, do so indirectly and speak of them as your own errors first. If, for example, someone made an error and said 1 + 1 is 3, a correction is easily and clearly needed. but it's important to handle it with grace by speaking out of your own errors before politely guiding them to their own mistakes and letting them fix it themselves. Calling attention to mistakes indirectly makes people far more amenable to changing their ways and their thinking, and they will appreciate you for not attacking them. We all know when we make mistakes. To do this, even subtle changes to phrases you use can make a big difference. Many times in parenting with young fathers, I tell them, look, don't be the disciplinarian. Be the only safe place your children can go to. I grew up in a generation where the dad was supposed to be the disciplinarian. We were supposed to take away the cell phone. We were supposed to ground the child. We were supposed to take away the car keys. That worked for my first children poorly. It fractured all the relationships. 13 years passed. We had 2 more children with the same wife, by the way. And I tried a different approach. I became the safe place when they got in trouble. My first 2 children, if they were drunk at a party or crashed a car, I was the last person they would call because they were programmed for discipline. Now, my younger ones, I'm the first person. Dad, I drank too much. I smoked a joint. I crashed my car. Can you come help me? I'm the first person they call. That's what a dad needs to be, as a safe place. A lot of that translates to all kinds of relationships. You may have heard people advocate for a compliment sandwich. That is, leading with a compliment, sharing your criticism, and then ending up with another compliment. That's stupid. Don't do that. That's bad advice. Just like I got bad advice on being a disciplinarian as a young dad. For example, imagine telling a child, your grades are looking good, but your algebra is way behind, but you can catch up soon. The but cancels out the first 2 compliments. Instead, think about how you could formulate the same critique softer with an and or a plus. For example, your grades are looking really good. Plus, if you want to keep working on your algebra, I know you'll catch up soon and I'll help you. Do you see the difference? In addition, people tend to be more receptive if you begin the conversation by talking about your own mistakes. I do this all the time. Yes, I've created companies creating $13 billion worth of revenue and creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. But I've had 100 companies tank, some of them that I thought were my greatest ideas, and I've lost a personal fortune chasing ideas that I thought were great. It's those failures and understanding how to share the mistakes I made that I think make my counsel valuable, not my successes. Point number 6, when you're wrong, admit it right away. Take the blame, get the blessing. That's one of my favorite sayings. Take the blame, get the blessing. The truth is, we all make mistakes. And whenever you do it and someone is about to berate you for it, there's an easy way to steal their thunder. Admit your mistakes first. Lay it all out. I screwed up. That's the way to become successful. Remember, #GoFail. Go fail a lot and you'll be successful. This is effective because no doubt the other party was planning to bolster their own self-esteem by putting you down and criticizing you. You just pulled the rug underneath that bad strategy for that person who's followed bad advice. But if you admit your guilt first, from a humble and transparent position, the situation completely flips. Now, in order to feel important, the other party can no longer attack you and put you down. Instead, they have to show you generosity by forgiving you. The next time you're in the wrong, admit it enthusiastically. You'll find much greater results and will quickly see how much better and more preferable it is to having another person point out your errors. I grew up a young trumpet player. That's why I have this trumpet right here. I have it with me all the time. My dad taught me, who was also a musician, son, if you're in the band and you're going to make a mistake, make it as loud as you can and make sure you laugh after you make the mistake. Don't cry and crawl under your chair and be full of guilt. Make a bold mistake, laugh about it, and everybody will laugh with you and move on to the next part of the song. Point number 7, make just a few jokes about yourself. One of the best ways to present yourself as a humble and likable person is to make some light-hearted jokes at your own expense, but don't put yourself down. There's kind of an art to that. Light, self-depreciating humor helps you come across as a down-to-earth and approachable person. But there's a fine line of putting yourself down and making a humorous joke about something you've done. You do have to be careful when you use this type of humor, though, because you don't want to overdo it, especially during your first networking or relationship building call or face-to-face interview. But it's especially effective in casual conversations. The benefit of using jokes about yourself is that they're at nobody else's expense. There's no risk of hurting feelings or alienating someone because you're the only one being poked fun at. And by the way, there are several books that have lots of these types of jokes that you can take them and put them in your phone or whatever so you have a reference point. There's product out there. There are jokes out there that you can use. Think about it this way. If you walked into a room and met a stuffy CEO who was never anything but formal and proper, would you be anxious and tense the whole time? You probably wouldn't walk away thinking, wow, I really want to see that guy again. However, if you met the CEO and early on they made a few jokes to lighten the mood, especially if those jokes were about themselves, and they show that they don't take themselves too seriously, you would immediately feel more at ease and ultimately be more likely to enjoy their company. Recently, I was putting a transaction together with Martha Stewart, one of the most famous women in the world. Martha is currently 78 years old. She's worth $1.6 billion. She even went to prison and had a best-selling book. She has an unstoppable personality, and people are extremely intimidated. I was bringing the CEO in of a $4 billion company, and I couldn't believe how frightened he and his CFO were to meet Martha Stewart. And so I said, guys, just relax. She's totally a normal person. So we walk into the meeting, and she says, everyone, does anyone want to take a picture? And it throws everybody for a loop because, of course, everybody wants a selfie with Martha Stewart. And so I said, Martha, do you mind if we take a couple pictures before we get going? And she goes, Michael, I have spent 65 years working day and night to get people to want to take a picture with me. Come on, guys. And it was just like the ultimate icebreaker. Everybody laughed and we had a fantastic meeting because Martha made